Hey guys. So it is Sunday morning and um, I'm just gonna give everybody a chance to sign on. I was having an issue with my internet, but it looks like it's okay now. So what's up everybody? A lot of people have their cameras off. That's fine. I get it. It's early. It's early. So I'm just gonna give you guys a second to hop on. I know that it's Labor Day, but I figured people could watch the replay and miss I didn't want to miss the week. I just felt like it was important. So I'm here. What's up, Chris? How are you? So yeah, I just didn't want to postpone it, even though it's Labor Day. I figured it could still work. Doesn't matter. It's all good. So, all right. Well, I anticipated that this would actually be a smaller group than normal, and so I actually thought that was a good thing. Because I want to do a couple things today, but one of the things I want to do is listen to you guys tell me how it's going and where you're at and specifics, and we can kind of talk a little bit about how I can help. So I'll call on a few people, and before we start, I'm just curious. You can do it in the chat if you can. I just kind of want to know, I want to take like a thermometer check of where everyone's at. So can you just type in the chat and let me know, like right now in this moment, just looking back at, let's say, August. During the month of August, how much time did you have to be purely like creative? How much time were you able to be creative? How much time were you just being in that state of feeling really that like a sort of exciting magic where you're literally just playing and being creative? I'm just curious. Oh, okay. Okay, awesome. So Amira said 0 time. August was brutal. And Chris said August was work survival mode. Okay. And Josh said, last week I got back on track, creative fun times. Renee said, this has been my most creative month. That's awesome. I've had time each day to just play and write. It's like my soul was revived. Timothy said, about an hour a day. That's great. That's a lot. Renee said, LA inspired. Jordan said, definitely not as much as I wanted. Had some great ops to jam, booked a studio. Cool. So I'm going to ask you another question in a second, but I just want to reiterate, this is something I've learned over the last few years where I really started to see things happen in my life that I really wanted. And what I can tell you is, everyone talks about goal setting, like what's your goal, and, tease it out and all that stuff. So what the problem with goal setting is, we can come up with goals and we can write them down and we can have clarity even around like specifics we want to achieve. And then a couple things happen. Number one, following through with your goals is really different than setting goals, really different. We start to encounter all the reasons that we didn't do the goal in the first place, which is that we feel a lot of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, and then there's also a lot of ambiguity around how that's going to happen. And just to address those two things, and then I'm going to get to the real thing that I want to say that I think helps with goals. One piece of this is that the clarity follows the action, which we've talked about, but it really is true. It's really hard to stare at flour and sugar and think about how that's going to become a cake. Like, it really doesn't make sense until you actually put the ingredients together, and then you do it one time and you realize, oh, I left out the eggs, or, oh, I put it all in, but I took it out of the oven after 6 minutes. Okay, so I'm kind of getting it. Like, you really have to leave it in for 32 minutes. And all of those like details matter a lot. Like if you were making a bread, right? If you were using a bread recipe and you just had all the right ingredients, but you put the yeast in last, you wouldn't have bread because you have to put the yeast in first. And then you realize that the yeast not only has to go in, but really what good bakers teach you to do is to take the yeast and make it hot and like let it ferment for like 10 minutes before you even add it into the mixture. So much clarity really and truly comes from doing the thing. Like if you've ever driven a stick shift car, they'll be like, okay, you press the clutch, then you press the brake, you press the gas. And it doesn't really seem like it is hard. And then you do it and you're like, oh no, okay. So there's like sort of a rhythm to that. Even though like the other day I was like playing on my ukulele and I was playing like a swing, like strum. And I was like playing it and then I was like, oh, now I'm actually really playing it because I had to sort of like get into it. So there's that. And then there's also all of the self-doubt and limiting beliefs. And I want to talk a little bit about that because I do think part of what we need to do, and I'm not a therapist, but truly part of the work that we all have to do, myself included, a little bit of CBT therapy, no joke. And CBT therapy is actually cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like a proven method of therapy that's been going on for years and years and years. And it actually works. And we can do it with ourselves, but essentially what it is like you have negative thoughts, and we all have them all the time. Unfortunately, way too more often than we would care to admit. And what cognitive behavioral therapy helps you do is notice when there's like a really intrusive thought. And an intrusive thought is the kind of thing that it really makes you anxious. Like it's not just a sad thought. It's kind of like, oh, I start to notice like everything starts to, my heart rate speeds up, I get tense, and then I have like this sort of tail, sort of like on a comet. There's like 1,000 other thoughts that come along with that one intrusive thought. You have this one intrusive thought like, it'll never happen. And then you have all these thoughts like, what was I thinking that it would happen? I'm going to wind up homeless. My girlfriend's going to leave me. Like all these things like come along, and then you just get super anxious. And then I want to teach you something. Anxiety needs certainty. So once you have an intrusive thought and then you feel anxious, your anxiety will look for certainty. And that's not possible. So what it does then is it's like, okay, well, am I doing this or am I not doing this? Okay, well, where's the evidence? And then it will just try to find any evidence it can, whatever feels more certain. So usually it's negativity, and then negativity, deep down, you're still not sure if that's certain, but you're believing it. And then it just makes you so anxious, and it just goes over and over again. So what CBT therapy does is it's basically you work with somebody who's actually like a trained therapist, which I'm not. And basically that person is like asking you, okay, so what's the intrusive thought? What is it? And for everybody, it's usually some version of not being enough, and then how that manifests in our work or in our relationship. That's pretty typical. And basically what they'll ask you to do is like over the course of like 6 to 10 sessions, continue to do this homework where you identify this thought, and then you choose again. You choose a new thought, and then you notice how that makes you feel. And basically you train yourself to notice this intruder, this thought, and then to sort of like switch it. And that's really important. And the reason I brought it up is because I want to show you a book, which I'm not recommending that you read. I mean, you can read it, but that's not why I'm showing it to you. I'm just showing it to you so you have like a sense of where I'm getting this from. So this woman, Danielle Laporte, I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she's kind of like she's kind of one of those big deal authors, motivational speakers. She's been on Oprah. She was on Super Soul Sunday sessions. But basically this entire book boils down to this, which I know it's backwards, so I'll read it. But the whole book says, how do you want to feel? And the name of the book is The Desire Map. And the reason I'm sharing it with you is because every single person who I meet who winds up being super successful does a version of this. So you don't have to read this book. It's just a matter of like getting the essence of it. And this is why I wanted to talk about goals and then talk about these sort of thoughts and then sort of share this with you as a possible answer. When we write down goals, you know, you might have like a New Year's Eve gathering with some friends. Like, oh, write down what you want for this year. And people start writing down, you know, like I want to make $1 million. I want to lose 10 pounds. People just write stuff down. So that's good. Those are all good things. But essentially, we don't work that way. Okay. We don't actually work that way. It's not like we're machines. And we're also not cognitive beings. We're feeling beings. We're much, much more centered in our feelings than we are in anything else. So the reason why she has this whole book around how do you want to feel is because essentially we are wanting to make $1 million or get 15 licenses or whatever the thing is we want because of a feeling that we want. There's a feeling you want to have, right? Like, why do you want to be in a good relationship? Because you want to feel whatever you associate with that. You want to feel connected. You want to have this like feeling of, this love, this purpose, whatever this feeling is. Why do you want to have a successful music career? You know, you can ask yourself that. Why? Well, it makes me feel like myself. It makes me feel, I'm making this up, but I'm thinking what I would think. Makes me feel free, that I don't have to work for somebody else. I can kind of live life on my terms, and that feels like I'm being myself. And that feels good. Okay, why else? Well, why do you need to do it so often? Why do you need to make so much money? What do you want from that? Well, I guess from that, it's more freedom, right? I have more freedom because I can choose what I want to do every day, right? You get to like the heart of it. Well, that's ultimately what everything is really about. So there's two important pieces here. Number one, when you think about what it is that you want in your life, make sure you write down this feeling that you're chasing, because the thing that's going to motivate you is this feeling, number one. And number two, here's the really sort of revelation of it. Whatever the feeling is that you're chasing, you actually can find that today. Okay? So what happens is when you start to actually go ahead and do the things that give you that feeling already, it's kind of unbelievable. It's actually kind of magical. It's a little bit of synchronicity. But it's sort of like you open a door to this like dream alternate reality, and things start to fall into place. Because when we're feeling the way we want to feel, first of all, we realize that's what we're chasing. Like there's no arbitrary thing that's going to make you feel a certain way. It just doesn't exist. Like having a Range Rover doesn't actually make you feel that thing you think it's going to make you feel. And being in a relationship doesn't always give you that thing. Not to say that you shouldn't want those things, because what I'm actually saying is that by feeling these feelings, you're actually going to bring it in closer. There's something about synchronicity, and this is the thing that I've found in my life, and this is what goes back to this idea of why the Artist Way, I think, has been such a successful, it's not really a book, it's like a workbook, and why so many people talk about it, why it's been read millions of times, is because when we actually unleash and we allow ourselves to play, to do the things that make us feel free right now, to make us feel happy right now, we are led to people and places and things that are beyond our wildest dreams, and actually probably surpass the dream that we wrote down. And it all just sort of like comes together. It takes it actually, it's a very courageous state to come from a place of being like in this childlike place of I'm going to let myself have a dance break every day, or I'm going to let myself paint just because I know I'm really working on music, but when I paint, it does awaken in me this feeling of freedom. It takes courage to be in that place, and it actually rewires all of this negativity, because when we're not doing those things that make us feel good now, what we're basically doing is we're saying, why would I do that? Why would it matter? My life isn't mine. Only until this happens or this happens will I actually feel free. Will I actually be able to do all the things I want to do? And so in the meantime, I'm going to set goals, and I'm not going to worry about doing any of the things that make me feel good right now. I'll just wait until that goal happens, and then I'll feel good. That's what most people do. But that doesn't work. And then, literally, okay, every single person I've had on my podcast who does what I'm saying to do, they not only get their goal, but they exceed it. Let me give you an example. So Jenna Fisher from The Office, she couldn't be nicer, by the way. Really, she's like from St. Louis. She's such a nice person. Um, so for those of you who don't know, she played Pam on The Office. Anyway, so she has a really successful acting career. And there was a time where she just couldn't get work. And she moved out here from St. Louis and she was like, I want to become an actress. I want to be successful. And she had like 6 weeks of savings to her name. And she blew through the savings. And so she's like, what was I thinking? I was going to get an acting job in 6 weeks. So she wound up getting a hostessing job and she was temping and doing all of this stuff. And nothing was happening. And she was feeling just so down, just like with this sort of goal that was always out of reach and living this other life, waiting for this goal, doing everything she could do to try to get to this goal. But most of what she did every day was stressful. She felt anxious. She felt sad. She felt very far away from these goals. And she decided that she was probably going to have to let go of this timeline and just surrender to the fact that she wasn't going to leave LA after 6 months. She realized after a year, she's like, I'm not leaving. So I'll take the timeline off. Like she used to say, like, if it doesn't happen in a year, I'm out. She's like, yeah, I think I'm going to get rid of that because I really do want this. So I'm going to let that go. But how am I going to do this? And she read this book, The Artist's Way, this book, and it talked all about like, how do you want to feel? What do you want to do? And for the first time in her life, she just decided, why am I waiting? Why am I waiting to feel this feeling? I'm just going to do the things now that make me feel this way. And so her next door neighbor, they lived in this like apartment complex in LA, is actually, he's an actor, Jason Segel, but at the time he was just an out of work, struggling actor. And she said, wouldn't it be fun if we just did something for fun? Like just really silly, like ridiculous, because we both want to be in a movie so bad, and let's just shoot something. And they're not writers, they didn't think of themselves as writers. Actually, they turned out both to be pretty good writers. And they were really looking to be, getting a job as an actor. And they decided like, it would just be so fun. Like I would just want to do it. Right. And he's like, yeah, I want to be doing that too. Let's do it. So they create the experience for themselves, and they made it up that they were going to basically pretend that they worked at a nonprofit office, and they were going to shoot a documentary about people who worked in this office who were like, it was like a mockumentary. And it wasn't even, they said they actually didn't know what it wound up being because it wasn't 30 minutes and it wasn't 90 minutes. So it wasn't as short as an episode of a show, and it wasn't as long as a movie. It was like 70 minutes or something. Like even the time of it was lame. It was just like didn't fit in a box. And so they started to figure out what are they going to do with it. And it was just so fun. She said like every moment of it, she just felt so free. She felt so much like herself. She felt so like, oh, this is funny. I kept waiting and thinking this feeling was going to happen over here, but I had it the entire time. She was like so lit up. And then as it turns out, she didn't know this at the time, but the British office was already filming, and they had submitted this movie, which wasn't even really a movie. It was like something in between a movie and a show, to this festival. And it didn't win because it really wasn't fitting any of the criteria. But they had so much fun doing it. And about a week after the festival, she got a call from this woman who was casting the US version of The Office. And she said, you have to come in and read for this part because this is you. This is the part you just played in this movie. And so she went in and she killed it. And she was like she was nowhere near a household name or anything, And if I tell you that every single person I literally could spend the time and I won't, but every single person who just decided right now to do more of the stuff that they want to do that makes them feel the feelings of free and happy, whatever those feelings are that you're chasing, what winds up happening is you open up this door, which is, you ever hear people say like, get into the flow, like you're in the flow or you're not? That's the flow. You follow this whisper, this hunch to do more of these things that you love. And it leads you to this person who says something, and then it leads you to this trip to Costa Rica, and then it leads you to this experience, and then you're like, oh, all those goals I wrote down, first of all, everything that's happened has completely blown those out of the water. And I feel so much more like this is my journey, and it was so specific to me, and I couldn't have even written it. It was so specific and awesome. And not only does that happen, but the entire way there, you're already feeling all of those things. And so I'm telling you, like, I could literally tell you about every single person who I've interviewed, who this is how it wound up happening. But my question to you, I want to go back to the first question I asked you. So how much time, a month is hard to remember. Let's say the last week, today's Sunday. So between now and last Sunday, how much time in the week did you do things that just made you feel the way you desire to feel? Write it down in the chat. And if there was nothing, you could say not really anything. And if there was like 3 things, tell me what those things were. So Chris said, I rented a studio to play out ideas and just have fun. That's great. Oh, Amira said she went surfing on her birthday and collaborated with it. That's awesome. You collaborated with someone and went surfing. Happy birthday. That's awesome. Jordan said, I played through the first album I wrote in college. Cool. Not music related. The work I've been doing has been creative and rewarding. That's good. Played my first show, getting paid to perform. Awesome. I would say it was about an hour a day, either live performing, writing music, and then daily I take a walk with my dog. Yeah, that's really nice. Chris said, you sang at a wedding? That's so nice. Cool. 6 hours total writing music. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot more than most people. And I think that we all work so much harder than we need to. I think we need to work smarter. You know, I've talked about it before, but how many of you have heard about this idea of a 4-hour work week? You've heard of this 4-hour work week? It's really a thing where we spend a lot of time that we don't need to spend feeling bad, and just kind of self-medicating because we feel bad. And so sometimes we watch too much TV and we really want to be doing something else, but there's a lot going on that's keeping us from doing the things we want to do. So we just watch what other people make, you know? And I would like to encourage you, like during the course of this week, to think about, and I'd like you to write it down right now. When you think about these goals of what you want to accomplish, and there's probably lots of goals, not just in your music life and career, but in your relationship life and in health and all that stuff. Tell me, write it down, show me in the chat, like, what are the feelings behind those things? Like, what is it going to feel like? Why do you want that? What does it feel like when you think about having this? What's the feeling? I'm just curious if you can even express that to yourself. Write it down. So Renee said, I literally light up like a Christmas tree. I love that image. A weight lifted, a rush of magic when I create a song that didn't exist before. Freedom to create. I love songwriting. Collaborating makes me feel alive, literally. Yeah, me too. Cool. Those are beautiful. I mean, I can feel all of those feelings. Just even though you're not even saying them, you're just writing them. I can feel it. That's how strong those words are. So that's, you know, that's so powerful. And I would tell you, I want you to know that, like, that's under our control, actually, right now. As much as it sounds like it's not, it actually is. Like, we get to do things right now. There are things that can make you feel that, right? To have enough money to do with what I want when I want, to have enough money to do what want with who I want when I okay. How many of you know that story about the guy in Mexico with the fish? Do you know what I'm talking about? So there's a story about this guy. So there's this guy, he's like a Harvard professor, rich, got all the American dream things. And he goes to Mexico and he's there with his family and they're staying at this beautiful resort. And every day he gets up early to do some work and he brings his laptop and he sits out on this deck and he's working while his family's still sleeping or whatever. And he sees this fisherman, go out and catch some fish and come back every day. And he's watching this every single day and he sees this guy go out and then come back with this whole thing of like, 8 fish. And he thinks it's like amazing. He's never seen anyone do that so quickly. Like the guy goes out, he's gone for like 40 minutes. He comes back like loaded up with fish. And he's like, wow, that's kind of amazing, this guy. Then he doesn't see him for the rest of the day. He sees him again the next day, same thing, next day, same thing, next day, same thing. So a few days later, he actually puts his work down and he walks over to the guy and he says, he's like, excuse me, I've been staying over here and watching you every single day. You're an amazing fisherman. I've never seen anyone do that. How do you do that so fast? How do you catch all these fish in like 45 minutes? And he tells him, oh, I've been doing this since I'm a kid. My parents did this, and he's Mexican. I'm not going to do a Mexican accent because it would probably sound racist and I don't mean to be, but I would love to be able to imitate every accent. Anyway, so he's like, yeah, so I guess this is something I know how to do since I was like 8 years old. So it's really easy. So he says, well, you're so good at it. And the fish look delicious. And he's like, oh yeah, it's like the best fish, that we have, people, you're going to a restaurant and spending like $45 for this much of a fillet. I'm getting the whole, so the guy's like a businessman. So he's like, huh, that's interesting. So you bring in like thousands of dollars worth of fish like every day in 45 minutes. And the guy's like, I guess I never thought about that, but yeah, I get, yeah. Mm-hmm. So he goes, so what do you do with it? He goes, oh, I just bring it back to my family and, that's it. So he's like, okay, that's interesting. So this guy's a businessman. So he says to him, why don't you stay out there for 2 hours and then the extra hour, make the exact same amount of fish because you know how to do it, but sell those, right? So you'll sell that and then you'll have, all this money. Uh-oh. I think someone is sharing their screen. Just unshare. Oh no. How do we get? It's so funny that I have no control over who's sharing their screen. Kevin, just unshare your screen if you don't mind. Oh no. View options. Stop participant sharing. Boom. I killed it. I feel so powerful right now. Sorry, Kevin. Anyway, so he says to him, why don't you just go out for an extra hour and you'll crush it. And the guy's like, I don't, hang on a second. Okay. I couldn't see my chat. Oh, there we go. So he's like, okay, why? He's like, what do you mean why? It's the most obvious thing I've ever seen. You're amazing at this. You just told me the kinds of fish that you're catching. You'll make, what did you say it's worth? He's like, oh, I don't know. This is like, cost this much a pound. So they did the math. He's like, okay, so that's $1,400 for every 8 fish you catch. He's like, wow, that's crazy. Something like that. So he says to me, you know what you could do then? He says, what? He's like, well, then you could, I'm sure one of your brothers knows how to do this, right? He goes, oh yeah, everyone in my family. He goes, okay, well, you could all go out, every morning and you could all do that for 2 hours. So then you'd have, you add it up, you'll make this, you'll have 10,000, 15,000. Then you could teach somebody else. He's like, yeah. And he's like, well, he goes, and then what? He goes, well, I live in Boston, but I mean, I know people in the States who would love this. So we could figure out a way for you to distribute this. And then maybe you can actually open up some kind of like cannery. And then it would be amazing because then you can basically teach other people this fish, and he's going on and on and on. And this Mexican guy's like staring at him like, what are you talking about? He goes, and then, yeah, no, think about it. Like you could basically, have a team of people who do this. You don't even then, you go out, you manage the team, then you got 15 boats out there. And then instead of doing 2 hours a day, have them do 10 hours a day and just think about that, right? Think about that. And he's like, right? Okay. He's like, so now you've got, now you're making like $100,000 a week, and then you can find a way to actually get it to be preserved. You could actually double that, triple that, and you could send it to the States. And because it's going to the States and it's local to where you are, you can add to it. You can charge more for it, all of the stuff. And he's like staring at this guy like, okay. He goes, and then what? He goes, then he's like, you'll have millions and millions of dollars. Like, you really have a talent, and you have a talent for catching something that's a rare delicacy. So you're good at something that other people want, and it costs money. And the guy's like, what's your point? Like, why are you, this sounds exhausting. He's like, what do you mean it sounds exhausting? You could literally become a millionaire. I'm telling you how to become a millionaire. And he goes, okay. And then what do I do? He goes, well, then you can just hang out with your family. You can just surf and you can have your freedom. And the guy goes, that's what I do every day right now. And the Harvard business guy goes, well, you don't get what I'm saying. And the Mexican guy says, you don't get what I'm saying. I don't think you get what I'm saying. He goes, I go out for an hour. I bring home stuff to my family. We live in this little tiny, makeshift of a house. I surf every day. I'm with my kids every day. I drink a few cervezas. I play guitar. I go to sleep. That's my life. And we never go hungry. We live next to this beautiful ocean, and we're fine. And he goes, and my wife makes the most delicious tortillas, and my whole family lives near me, and we sing music all night. And the guy's just staring at this guy. And the Mexican guy goes, I don't know, sir. He's like, what do you do every day? And he goes, well, I take one vacation a year. So listening to you say that you do that every day, I don't even know what to do with that. He goes, well, what do you do? He goes, well, I wake up at like 5 a.m. I don't usually see my kids in the morning. I go to work. I teach at a really prestigious school. It's called Harvard. I'm there 70 hours a week. I'm trying to get something published every time. I have tenure. There's a lot of pressure. And I'm able to, my kids live in the most beautiful house in Beacon Hill. And, we have beautiful cars, and my kids go to the best schools. And the guy's like staring at him, and he's like, and how do you spend your day? He goes, I just work every day, all day long. And he's like, and so how does that go? He's like, well, I don't know. I mean, my kids have all of these incredible things, and there's nothing that they can't have, and as he's talking, he realizes like he has to stop talking because it's ridiculous what he's saying. So he goes, so when do you surf? He goes, I don't know how to surf. He goes, how often do you get to have time, to hang out with your kids? Do you play guitar? Do you ever drink a beer with your friends? He's like, oh, no, not really. He's like, so when are you going to do that? And he goes, well, I guess when I retire. He goes, how old are you now? He goes, 54. He goes, when do you plan to retire? He's like, I don't know. Actually, maybe I can't retire because we have this like $4 million brownstone, and my kids are in a private school, which is like $40,000 a year for every kid, and they're going to go to college. So he goes, I don't know if I could retire, but maybe in my 70s. So the Mexican guy goes, so when you're 70, come down here, and every morning we can fish, and I'll teach you how to play guitar. And he's like, you should meet my wife. She's so sweet. Your wife would like her. And he goes, I have 6 kids, and they're awesome. And they're so talented. And he's like, you guys should come over. Actually, he goes, what are you guys doing tonight? You guys should come over. And the guy goes back to his work, and he like cries his eyes out, right? So you get it, right? I mean, it's the most obvious thing to get. But we make things, we really lie to ourselves, we really lie to ourselves. And I'm telling you, I know it sounds like I'm making it up because it's so foreign to the way that we work and the way that we think things happen. But when I tell you that I can spot a successful person and who's going to be actually like American dream successful versus someone who's not, I know people. I could literally name off basically everyone that I work with / look up to / get to meet, all the time in my business or my podcast. Anyone who's successful got that and then did all of those things that make them come to life. And here's the difference between this Mexican fisherman and then where it actually becomes like monetary. Like if you want to have that plus everything else, I'll tell you where that other piece comes in. It starts with being that fisherman and realizing that it's total BS to say like, I don't have the money to have freedom. That's not true. 100% it's not true. I have a friend right now who's like a starving artist in Manhattan, and she doesn't want to have a real job because she really wants to just make what she makes. And yeah, she lives in like a bedroom that she rents with another friend, and she's in her 40s and she doesn't have a ton of money. But my friend who has like a corporate job said to her, God, you're so rich. Like all you do all day long is make these creative projects. And she's like, yeah, I guess I chose, like, that's what I wanted. Here's the piece where you can have this freedom and this joy and then a big plus sign, and it actually will equal all those other bells and whistles. If you want peace and joy, but you're not as evolved and enlightened as this Mexican fisherman, and you still want the Range Rover and all that stuff. And the truth is, I'm actually being funny about it because it doesn't mean that you're not as evolved. Some of us, and I put myself in this category. I mean, I'm even wearing a shirt, for God's sakes, that says be present. I didn't even realize I put this on. But some of us want both. And the reason is because you have a calling. I don't know about you. I feel a calling to serve the world. I 100% do. I've felt that way really my whole life. But when I was in college, it sort of like clicked on, and I became editor of my college paper, and there were 40,000 kids on campus, and I wanted to speak to them and talk to them and help inspire them. And I didn't know I'd ever do what I'm doing now, but I started to take a leadership role in wanting to impact the world. I guess around like 18, it kind of like sunk in, and I like became president of my school student body. And I don't know, I just had this like need to help people. That's where you wind up getting everything else, because when you can be in a state of joy and freedom, and then you have this plus sign, and the plus sign is serving someone else, depending on how much you want to scale that, how many people you want to serve, and depending how good you are at doing that, you actually you can make lots and lots and lots and lots of money doing the thing that you love. But it comes down, because this guy, right, as an example, this fisherman, he wanted to make sure that like he felt good. He wanted to be there for his family. He wasn't necessarily thinking, well, if I had more, could I serve this other village? He wasn't thinking about that, which is fine. It doesn't make him a bad person. He was just sort of like living his life, and it really is living a best life. And for some people, I think that story could change their lives, and they may start to make better decisions, and that might be really what they do really want. But some of us are like, no, I really would love to be a voice, to give other people permission to do their thing, help other people. I like that, because business is basically the biggest relationship of your life. Business is a relationship with other people. Business is someone else saying, we're so much in a relationship that I'm actually going to pay you for something because you definitely made me feel like you get me and value what I need, and you made it for me. So I'm going to pay you something for that. So that's a sign that like we're in a relationship, because I'm actually going to give you money for something that you do, which money is just me valuing. It's the only way I know how to give you value in exchange for something I needed. So thank you. So when we start to like really, we're like, God, I've talked to people on my show who are like, I love to make people laugh. Like I as much as I could hang out in Mexico like that guy, I couldn't, because I have to make people laugh. It's like a need. Some people have to perform. There's like, I want so much. It doesn't really feel like I'm being myself. Everybody has a different sort of place in the tapestry of things. But for some people, especially performers, there's something you want to say, right? This message. And you just feel like there's certain things that we write or create that we have to create. It's not a choice. It doesn't feel like it's up to us. Like, I have to create this. I have to put this in the world. That has to do with you wanting to make a difference for someone else. There's a reason why you feel like this just has to be shared. Someone else might benefit from that, right? So that's where things actually can get a little bit beyond, right, us just feeling good. I know for myself, when I think about like that idea, as nice as that sounds in some ways, I just feel like I would personally go crazy because I don't feel like myself unless I'm in service. It makes me actually feel anxious. I just don't feel like that's me. I'm not wired that way. I don't know what to do with myself when I'm not doing that. So that's just some food for thought. But they have to go together. It's being in that magical state right now, because when people see you in that state, things just come. People want to be around that guy. People want to be around that woman who's just like already feeling free, right? And then not only that, but when you're doing those things, these incredible ideas will come to you, or synchronistic things will come. Have you ever seen that happen in your life already? Where you were just kind of like doing this thing because it feels good to do. And I know for myself, sometimes I'm literally I'll be like, I'm going to go take a walk because I really feel called to just like relax for a minute. And I come back and I have this incredible idea that I got just from making some space. So I want you guys, when you're thinking about setting goals, I want you to make sure that you remember how you want to feel, and then see if you can create that feeling for yourself. Like, what can you do today that's going to make you feel that way? Does that make sense? Okay. So I want to now hear, do you know how to raise your hand? Okay, so let's see if we have time for like 3 of you. Let's do 3, and then let's see how much time we have. So raise your hand if you feel like sharing with me specifically what's going on right now in your life with all this music stuff, and what's feeling like it's stuck, what's feeling frustrating, because I want to see if I can help. So Brenna, where are you? There you are. Hey, hang on. I'm going to unmute. Oh, you did. Okay, go ahead. What's up?
So good morning. Sorry I came in late. I didn't see the change. But what's been happening with me with the music stuff is I've been creating more than I ever have. I've been writing every single day. My accountability partner and I challenged each other to write a song a day, and I'm pretty consistent with that, and feeling like I'm not quite so hanging on to the song itself, just making a song. Okay. Doesn't matter whether it's good or not. And that's really great. And I'm creating a lot of relationships and exploring a lot of co-writes and stuff. But I think where I'm feeling stuck and frustrated is that I have not, I have a tendency not to like to have to rely on other people to get things done. I just want to be able to get it done myself and move on. But I don't have at all any production ability. And because of where I live, I don't have a whole lot of producers around who I can connect with. And I've been connecting with some folks in the class, but because everybody's got their own stuff going on, there are lots of different priorities that I'm in line behind. So I'm feeling frustrated that I have a vision, I know what I want to do, and I have songs that I think are good and need to kind of get there, but I'm not able to do that myself. And I haven't been able to find a way to make it happen because I don't have money to just pay a producer. So, and I live in Maryland, outside of the city. I don't really have any connections here, people who can produce. So I think I feel a bit frustrated that I have to rely on other people's schedules to get stuff done. And I recognize that that's just the way of the world. But that's where I'm hitting the wall.
Great. I think that's a really important point. And I thought about this a lot, and I've had to do this myself, what you're doing, because I don't produce my own music. So I have some suggestions that I think could be really life-changing. So first of all, when you're producing music, I used to think, you need, like in LA, there's like a list of like the best producers, right? Like the people who are working on the records that are going on the radio, right? Like I've had a few meetings with those folks. And I used to think like, oh, okay, so there's a barrier to entry because some of my friends would do like a Kickstarter campaign and raise like $25,000 to go in the studio with a couple of these people who are sort of in my circle who produce like Sarah Bareilles or Maroon 5. I went to this guy's house and it's just ridiculous. It's just like you can get 3 songs recorded, right? So at first I was like, oh, that's the model? God, that's impossible. It's almost impossible. And I get it, right? Like if you want to be in real estate and you want to flip a piece of real estate and that's your business, you have to buy the real estate and hope that you make money on the end. So most businesses, actually all businesses on some level are investing in it, but it's expensive to buy a piece of real estate, right? It's expensive to spend $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on a track. It's like, that's a tough business model, right? And then to hope that something happens. So that's what I thought when I started. I remember my first record, I spent $3,500 a song, and it wasn't anywhere near a producer that was that great, but it was somewhere in the middle, and it was terrible, so stupid. The songs weren't good enough. I should never have done that. And it was so expensive. And it was just like, oh, I wound up at the end saying, oh, I'm broke. There's no way I can ever make music now because this isn't sustainable. So I'm done, And then I realized something that was like a huge awakening for me. I realized that in order for me to create the kind of songs that I wanted to create, that sounded the way I wanted them to sound, I actually was able to help produce that in a couple ways. Number one, when you go into a session and you have an idea of what you want the song to sound like, the clearer that you can be, please understand that that's part of being a producer, right? When I was signed to Interscope, I remember being with Ron Fair, and he would sit in the back of the room like this with his eyes closed, and he would just be like, comp that, no, throw that one away, more low end. Like he would just sort of like throw things out because he had an idea. He didn't touch anything. He has like his engineer, actually he passed away, this guy Tal Hertzberg was his engineer. And Ron would just stand there like listening and just calling the shots, right? So being a producer, there's a couple of things that happen. It's not only the person who's playing an instrument, it's the person who has the vision, okay? So part of what we're trying to have you guys learn to do is to really listen, learning to listen and learning to know what you want the song, what to be in the song, which is why I've said when you go to the studio, and I'll get to it in a second, you're like, who's the person? I'll get to it. When you go to the studio, I want you to have really like a few clear references of like, I love this song for this reason. I love the 4 on the floor. I love hear how it builds. I love all that stuff. That's a huge, huge piece. I'll tell you why. There are, I don't want to say endless because that's probably not true. It's not infinite, but there are so many people who know their way around Pro Tools, who can play guitar, there's so many people who know how to play the drums. I mean, so many people, okay? And what I realized early on in my journey was, okay, if I find someone, and by the way, most of the music I made that started to do well before I met Bill, I was basically making records with my friends on their laptops in their bedrooms in their apartments. And these songs got licensed and they were great. Really, really good quality. It's actually scary what you can create on a laptop, but it's happening nonstop, like all the time. In fact, the Highfields, the first like 20 songs that they created on their own laptop. They didn't have real drums. They just like did their thing and it all worked. It was great. But when the songs that they started to do that really worked, they started doing like that. So where am I going with this? Well, right now, just in this moment, let's say, without me even digging deep, if you go online, right, onto Facebook and you look for like Berkeley alumni, right, kids who just graduated from Berkeley, from Full Sail, from Belmont, these are all music schools. There are dozens and dozens and hundreds, thousands of kids, students, 22, 23, new people who don't yet charge thousands of dollars, right? Because they don't have the street cred yet to do that, who can produce a track for you, you'd be like blown away. So you need to realize that they're there. Number one, that's a big realization. And number two, when you come to those people with two things, one, you already have the vision, right? Because if they know their way around Pro Tools and they can play electric guitar, regular guitar, piano, and if they can't, they have a buddy who can, you can make all the sounds you want to have happen, especially when you're like, this is what I want it to sound like, right? They can create that. That's not, you're not asking them to like write Beethoven's symphony. Like you're asking them to do some pretty especially if you're giving them a sense, okay? I'd be like serious, I'm not joking. They would probably be like, oh, that's what you want me to do? I get it. Okay, you like these 3 songs, here's why. So that's number 1. Number 2, you have to be resourceful and basically come to those folks and say, look, you're starting out, right? So this is, and I would post, right? There's so many places there's not just Berkeley alumni and Belmont alumni and Full Sail alumni. There's groups right now, like if you did digging, just in LA alone, and by the way, you don't have to live in LA, but like in LA, in New York, all over Facebook, there are groups of indie musicians, songwriters. You can post and basically be saying, this is what I'm looking for, and here's what you need to then go to next. Anytime you want to work with anyone and you need it to be like you're looking for someone to give you something, right? In this case, you need someone to work with, and you're not looking to pay even $1,000, right? You don't want to spend much money at all. We need to think about every situation, no matter what we're in, right? What is your value add proposition, right? So you want to basically think about all the things that you have to bring value to this arrangement. And one of those things, I mean, I'm going to just start making them up, but off the cuff, but there's so many. Like you're in this program, right? I can tell you that over the last 16 years, whenever I've wanted to write a song, okay, you go back and forth with the producer, there's emails, phone calls, okay. Whenever I have DM'd that same person or Facebook messaged them and said, there's an opportunity for me to pitch a song to such and such music supervisor for a thing, even when there's no guarantee, they know. When it's literally like, I just got a request for this, they're like, let's do it tonight, let's meet up, okay? Every time. Sure, let's meet up. Why? Because most of the time, 99% of the time, they're working on stuff. They might get paid $500 up front, $1,500 up front, whatever it is. But there's no like direct like, oh, I'm then going to pitch it for this opportunity. We might actually get this thing to happen. That usually doesn't happen. It's just sort of like they go to the work, they do their thing, they hope the music is good, they put it out in the world. All of a sudden you come along and it's like, that's exciting. Right? They're not on the inside of that, especially if it's somebody who's younger, maybe not connected. But even if for people who are connected, they still love hearing that stuff. Rich Jacks was at our last Sing Keepers, and I've known Rich for years, and he's so successful. I mean, I think he has more than like 400 placements. Like he's so successful. He's been repped by Secret Road for years. I don't know if he's still there, but he was there for years. We were in the green room before the Sing Keepers thing, and I was just kind of like checking in, asking him how he's been. And I was like, oh, so-and-so, music supervisor. He's like, I'm like, so-and-so. He's like he's always had an agent, right? And I was like, how do you not, they know you? Like, actually, I just met Genevieve recently, and he's like, who's Genevieve? I'm like, she's the supervisor who placed your Target ad, the last of like 8. And he's like, his agent was always meeting with them. And he started to get so excited. He was like, God, that's so cool that you're on the inside. I've never been on the inside. A lot of artists actually have always had, right? So even someone like him who's been so successful and made tons and tons of money doing it, he just loved that. He was like, oh, if you ever have something you need, like we could do it together. I'm always down for it. That's just so cool. So that's one value add that you have. It's like, you going into the world with like, I'm looking for a person who knows how to do this. This is where I'm at, right? I'm actually going to be working on it. This is where I'm headed. Even if you were saying, I don't have a specific opportunity, but I'm in this sort of cohort where I've learned how to pitch things directly. And I personally like this song and this idea for the song, and I want to pitch it to so-and-so, so-and-so, and I have that in mind. So I want to get this created, and then I'm going to do that. I am going to follow up, because I'm that kind of an artist. That's a whole nother resource you bring, because the majority of artists do not do that. They go in the studio, they make music, they let it sit on their laptop, and they sleep until 11 o'clock every day. That's what most artists, I'm telling you, they don't take the hustle. So if you approach a producer and say, look, I'm not going to be able to pay you up front, but this is what I'm doing. I guarantee you, not everyone's going to be like, yeah, totally. But you're going to find people who are like, that sounds cool. I have a free day next week. I have a free day. Let's do it. You just have to widen the pool of people that you're looking toward. And I'm showing you they're everywhere. My sister's in New York City right now. And every time we hire a cameraman, whether it's for my podcast or for St. Keepers or whatever, where I need cameramen all the time, I'm spending a lot of money. And the other day I saw her, because on Facebook you can see people posting in other people's groups. Sometimes if they're your friends, somehow that comes up on your thread. I see her post, it says, her name and then the arrow, and she posted it in a group called New York City Production. I was like, what's that? She just found it. She's very resourceful like that. She has to be, because she doesn't have tons of disposable income. And she says, I'm shooting a web series and I need a cameraman. This is like, I'm not going to pay you, but it can go on your reel. She had like 13 people respond. And I said to her, how do you do that every time? And she's like, what do you do? I'm like, I pay like $2,500 for a cameraman, right? She's like, well, you did this with producers for songs. How did you not get this? I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't like click, She's like, there's so many people. There's so many people in the world, right? All different kinds of schedules and in terms of like where they're at in terms of their what would you call it? Their like value ladder. Like some people just aren't at a place where they charge. They're just starting, right? They just want to do the thing. My sister-in-law is a photographer. She's a photographer, and she recently was asked to take stills on a set, a TV show, but it was like an indie thing. They're like, we can't pay you. She's like, I want to do it. I just want to do it. She's a great photographer, so she got a lot out of doing it, right? So think about what you have to add to the conversation. Also, remember that there are some people, they really just want to work with people who are enthusiastic and fun and talented. John Kleinbell, up until recently, he was like, yeah, I'm at a place now where like, I don't take anything on spec, but there was a long time where I did because I was starting and I wanted to, and it was fun. Now he's just too busy, and that's what happens, right? Supply and demand. Like if you have 10 people asking you every day to pay you, and you like their work obviously you would do that. So he just grew into that more. He's just on like a different level now, right? A different playing field. But he's like, for years I did that, and I actually liked it. It was fun. I wanted to work on my production. I wanted to work with somebody who was cool, talented, all of that stuff. So I just want you guys to start thinking out of this box. And I want you to know so much, not just like here and there, but so much of the music that comes into us that we wind up actually getting placed. The writer and the producer didn't even live in the same country. Like some of them live in Europe and some of them live in the States and some live in Chicago and some live in Arizona, and they like do it together. So that also doesn't have to stop you. Even Billy Loeffler like produces, I've sent him people who don't live in LA or don't live in this country. He'll produce this track with them when they're living somewhere else. So you don't have to live near the person and you don't have to have the money, but you have to think about what you do have to bring to the situation and where you might get resourceful and find. You basically, like I was talking about before, we're like, how do you want to feel? Go do that. It's like, what do you really need? You need a person who knows Pro Tools, who's a good musician. And when you have a person who knows Pro Tools, a good musician, and you have a vision, and you make sure that that vision is clear, I guarantee you there's 15 people right now who are just sitting on their phone who you could be like posting in a group and they'd be like, oh, that's cool. That's what you're involved in. I've wanted to get into sync. I know nothing about it. Just the fact that you're in this program and you've learned about it, even if you didn't have an opportunity, but you could say to someone, I've learned a ton about it. I've invested the last term for the time. And that's the deal with it. You say, sometimes you're going to say, I can pay you $250, right? Or you say, I can't pay you anything. But you might be able to say, I can pay you $250 up front. And then on the back end, I'll give you this much of the master. And by the way, with masters, you can say, I'll give you this much of the master, period. Or you can say, I'll give you this much of the master up to a cap. You can do that, right? Like, let's say you would have paid this person, if they had their wish list, you would have paid them $3,500 for the track, right? So you could say to them something like, I'll pay you $500, I'm making this up, pay you $500. And then on the back end, instead of paying you $3,000, since you're taking the risk, I'll pay you 50% of the master up to $6,000. So you'll wind up making $6,500 on a track if it lands, versus $3,500 for sure up front. Now, sometimes they're going to take it and sometimes they won't. But that's one way to think about splitting masters with people. It doesn't have to be forever, indefinitely. Does that help what I'm saying?
Sorry. Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, that helps tremendously because I was initially, when I first started the class, I was working with a friend who's a sound engineer and does some production, but wasn't in the class and he wasn't getting what we were learning about production. And so I had to move away from him and I was really focused on just working with people in the class. But because they are all so in demand, and everybody was so enthusiastic diving into a bazillion projects, we're all kind of backed up now. So thinking now about going back outside the class was something that I wasn't really focused on, but that's very helpful.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
actually, if you do that research, because I mean, we could all do it. We could all literally stop what we're doing on Zoom right now, go onto Facebook groups, and each one of us, we could come back with 3 different groups. But that would be a great thing for you to do. If you do some of that research, you should post some of the groups that you found, because there are indie musicians everywhere. And there are so many people who they don't sing, let's say, and they don't have like a big career right now in any kind of music, but they really know how to produce a track. They went to music school or they didn't, but they're really good at it. They know Pro Tools, and maybe they have a day job, but they'd like to be more creative, or maybe they do this, but it's very rare for them to meet an artist who has a direction and who's intentional. Either way you go, there are going to be people who are like, that's cool. But you might have to like hustle a little. I'm not just saying post in one group, but you might post in a few, talk to a few people. You might meet a few people who are not talented. You have to kind of weed through it just like you would if you were looking for a car or a nanny. Like you have to meet people, but I guarantee you that you're going to meet people, because I did. And that's what wound up happening is I met somebody and I wound up giving him like $250 a song, which when I was 25 was like a lot for me because I was trying to record a song every week. I gave him $250 plus I gave him 10% indefinitely of the master. And a couple of those songs landed, which was cool. And then the next thing I did after that is I met another person, and that guy, I didn't actually have to pay him anything up front. I wound up just splitting the master with him. So I had these 2 deals. And then after those 2 things, we started making lots of music, and that was really important and cool. And then after that, I met Bill. And then when Bill and I met, we did like a bigger, I spent more money on it, but that was worthwhile. And that is the way that I would go. Like I wouldn't spend a lot of money until, the songs are ready to be spent. Like it took me a couple years, and even the songs that I was writing with those 2 other people, even though they were getting licensed, some of them, I was happy that I went through, a few years of that before I then got to the next place with my songwriting that I was really ready to invest thousands of dollars in, because it did go the distance. But I know now, like John has said this and Billy has said this, like really nice people don't want to take your money if the song isn't awesome. And it's not easy to tell someone, but you should thank a producer if they say no, because if they say, no, don't give me $3,500, they're trying to be kind. Like they could just be like, sure, give me the money all day long. I can make, but so yeah, I think it makes sense to try to do it this way. And then there will come a time where I do think you should invest more. Once you've seen that the music is like really working and a few things have gotten licensed, you can for sure get stuff licensed and start making money from things that are produced in someone's bedroom on their laptop. 100% you can do that all day. You really can. So I would love to see what happens from that. And I actually would love it if you follow up. I think it might be interesting for everybody to hear if you do follow up and what groups you find, if you could like suggest like, oh, I found these 3, because why not, right? Let's show people that this is true.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. And I see that a couple people have suggested a few places already, some of which I'm involved in, but I haven't really gotten engaged. I've just been following. So I definitely will go and look at some of the groups and report back.
Awesome. I agree. I personally just have this experience too, because for my own stuff, I'm always, every year when we do an event, we've been doing like 2 to 3 events a year. And there was a time where I was doing one every 6 weeks for these Synkeeper events. I've been doing them for 5 years. And so I used to go back to my email and I would email all of these music supervisors. Can you come this time? How about you? You said you couldn't come last time. How about this time? How is it going? How's your daughter? Like I would send all these emails. And I would get a few people and I'd be like, okay, now we have 3 people who said yes. This guy's going to let me know. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be. And then through the beauty of Facebook groups, about 10 months ago, a music supervisor invited me to be in this secret Facebook group, which I can't even tell you what it's called, but because it's like a secret group. And it's only music supervisors in the group. I know now you're like, you are such an ass. Why don't you just tell them? I can't, because then they'll be mad at me. But they invited me to be in it, and I was in it. And what's cool about it is the reason they keep it secret is because supervisors will be like, I need this song. I sent it out to my list. Does anyone have a song like this? And so they keep it sort of a small group. So I was looking at people's searches, and then it dawned on me like 2 events ago, why don't I post in there? Does anyone want to come speak at this event? I'm paying you, right? Like I do pay them. And like I filled it up like within seconds. Like I was like, oh, it's amazing. Like all these other people who sometimes I email, sometimes they don't respond, sometimes they do respond, sometimes I don't email them on the right day, sometimes I have to then like follow up. I was like, guys, the next event is this day. This is what I'm going to pay you for the hour to show up and like be kind to everybody. You're going to get lots of purpose from it. Plus you get paid $300. Like put it in the comments if you want to come. And it was just like, okay. And I had way too many people. I was like, I'll let you come to the next thing. And then for some people, I was like, oh, do you want to come speak in the class? Because we pay them also to come speak. So it was like the same deal. And they're like, sure. So we booked out like tons of people just from being resourceful and being in this group. So there's always a way to work smarter. Renee, let me hear from you. Tell me what's going on in your life.
Okay, wait. Oh, did you unmute me?
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, thank you again for the LA. That was amazing, and I really wish I would have gone the first time because I had a thousand.
You came, and I'm so glad that you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it too. It was fun.
Sorry, small dog. I took a long time getting started in this group. Like I kind of jumped in right at first, and then I fell off because life happened. And who was the name of that speaker that had cancer that was at the St. Keepers? And he had gotten cancer and was in remission.
Scotty Lund.
Yeah. So I heard him speak, and it was kind of one of those moments where you're like, my life, it was bad, but it's not bad. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't facing the end of my life potentially. Though I think that there are things that happen in your life that can feel that way. And that's kind of how I felt, but it wasn't what was happening. And he really inspired me to kind of like jump back into this. Cause I fell right out. I think what happened too is I'm with the producing thing. I don't produce. And so I teamed up with a few people, but it's kind of like, if they don't have the same drive you have, it doesn't get done and it just drags on. And then when it is done, you're kind of like, that's not what I was thinking, because it's in your head one way. And then you try to tell that to them because you don't have language, it doesn't come out the way you thought of it,
right,
or the way that you need it. And then I think too, like just feeling like I was spinning my wheels, and then life hit me, so I bailed. But I hope that I can come back and be like full force in this, because that's what I've done this month since St. Keepers. I've connected with producers, all because I went to that convention that you had. I met other artists who linked me to producers, and I'm not against spending some money, but I think you're right. You don't have to spend thousands. Like, find somebody that's got that sound. And that's what the conference was so good about too, is the sound. We got to hear so much of the music and listen to you guys say what worked and what didn't work and what was, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's where I am. I'm just coming back in, and I'm pretty sure there's probably people in our group that feel the same way. So I've been meaning to make a post to say, if you feel like I feel and you're this far behind, like doesn't mean you're out. Like you can
Of course. Yeah, well, it sounds like you got really re-inspired and reinvigorated, so that's awesome. And did you let Scotty know that he inspired you? You should message him.
No, his name, when you just have
right, because you didn't know his name. You should message him, because I'm sure he would be touched to hear that.
I'll tell him.
Yeah, that took a lot of courage. For those of you, a lot of you probably know that by now, but basically Scotty got up and shared that he was diagnosed with cancer in October, November, and he was really sick, and he had it's really, I don't know, the details are very sad and depressing, so I won't share the details. But he spoke at the event. He spoke from his heart. It was really beautiful. And basically 2 weeks after he had gotten diagnosed, he found out that one of his songs that he co-wrote was going to be licensed. We actually licensed it for them in younger. And then he had already written another song called Warrior, which is about like, I'm going to keep going. It doesn't matter, even if like my heart's beating out of my chest. And he felt like he'd just gotten this like awful thing happen, but at the same time where he got this glimmer of validation and hope that what he was doing in the world was actually working. And he said it really helped him keep going. And he's just a beautiful soul. And it is very like, it's very sobering, when a person tells you that stuff and then you're like, oh yeah, why do I not do the things that I want to do? Even, I'm not going through something like that. I could, look what he's doing, even in the face of that. So really inspiring. I feel like I just want you guys to know this idea of like doing the work, this is the hardest thing, in fact, we just did a whole another challenge. I'm sure you saw, to like bring more people in. And of course we didn't put them in this group because we didn't want to flood this group. Like I didn't want to have a session with you guys and have 300 people right on the same call. So we're sort of doubling up. But that program is, it's actually now, it's a little bit more expensive, the program, just a little, but it is a little more expensive. And guess what? It's only 6 months. So they're paying not only the same price, a little more, and only 6 months. And you know why? Because I had a researcher on my podcast who told me that when every 90 days people hit a wall. And that's why actually any kind of training, you go through these like 90-day cycles. Even in school, you have quarters. There's a quarter system. So even Olympic athletes, they have this, or like NFL players, like they'll be like crushing it. And then like 90 days later, they like hit a wall. So we actually shortened it because we wanted to sort of turn up the flame on people taking action. Because what happens when things are a year is you think to yourself, I have time, right? And if I don't write something this month, I'll get feedback in 3 months. And then you sort of fall into this rut and it doesn't really serve you. And for us, we're teaching something, but when was the last time you took a guitar lesson or a yoga class and 6 months in, your teacher's like, okay, I have something completely new to teach you now. And then the next week, I have something completely new. There's Warrior 1, Warrior 2. Now there's Warrior 7, Warrior 12. Like it really doesn't change, right? Like if you're taking voice lessons, if you're taking yoga, from somebody, it's the same 26 steps, right? After a while, you just have to do it. And then they can go deeper, right, with you when you're in a new place, right? So it's the same steps, but they could actually help you find that new level of mastery. But you have to be here, right? You have to change, right? For that to be like a little bit more detailed, because you then start to go, oh, I now have this awareness, why does Serena Williams still have a coach? Because she wants to get the edge, right? But she's in a new place. She needs a different kind of coach. And she needs someone who's like, now that you're here, let's really dissect this, right? So, I mean, there's so much, like we could go deeper on like, just the business part, just how I like make relationships and like, what are the details of that? But for that, like the songs should be flowing. Your process is good. Your rhythm is good. And if you want to go deeper on like, your vocal alone, you can improve that. There's always room for improvement. But essentially, unless you guys do the work and then you really start to do it, it's not literally happening and changing, right? And evolving. There's a difference between when my husband and I went to go learn dance before our wedding, and they're like, this is the box step, and I've said this to you before, but then after a while, you stop thinking about where your hand is on the guitar. You stop thinking about the steps. You know how to dance. And now you're not just dancing. Now you want to learn how to really dance and how to really make it a part of your body, right? There's a difference between the way you and I dance and the way the dancers from So You Think You Can Dance, right? Like they're not worried about steps at this point. That's like fun. They're worried about like really fully unleashing so that it just looks like it's like this like synchronistic, beautiful, magical experience that's like it's one with their body. It's a whole different level, right? They're like Olympians, it's just different. So we realized that we're going to make the program shorter because it has to be that people eventually take responsibility and go do the work. right? Which is for all of us, by the way. I'm in the same boat with the stuff that I work on, the same boat. Like my therapist is like, you come every single week and there's nothing I can do for you. Like, have you done it? Did you try the things I said? Are you doing this? I'm like, kind of. She's like, okay, so just, do you want to have me practice with you once a week? Like, where you come in here and finally talk about it or do the things I tell you to do? And I'm like, right. You know what I mean? Like, all of us, I'm being vulnerable. We all are in this boat. It's not just you. But when we get serious with ourselves and we actually decide, like, I'm doing this, we start to see the things come together. And that's where it's like, okay, yeah, we have to take massive action. So if you're waiting for people because you have to be on their timelines and they're producing and there's a jam up because everybody wants these 4 people to work with, what would be the massive action? It's like, forget this. How can I get resourceful? Who else can I reach out to? Who else can I work with? And it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the call, which is we have to remember why we want to do this stuff and do it because it feels fun and there's freedom in it and there's joy in it, and make that something that you make non-negotiable every single day. That's why I'm doing this, because I want to have fun. I want to do it already and get that certainty. You know what I mean? Like I showed, where is it? Do I have it up here? I had it the other day. I just had it the other day. Oh, yeah. This is a check that for Catch the Moon. Do you see how much it is?
Wait, slide it over. Oh, yeah.
This was a check I just printed out just the other day. I went to the bank. I printed out like 4 of them. I mean, I'm going to show you right now from my PayPal, because this one's, I just did this one the other day. Let me just go into my PayPal. I just PayPal'd an artist like $21,000. Like that was their share. Hang on, I'm going to show you. Because it just happened recently. The certainty of what's possible will also move you. Like you will move. Like if you know what's here, let me just go to my activity. Money out. Where is it? Yeah. Uber. It's funny. Here. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's amazing. Show that. Yeah, it's amazing.
That was just for a renewal of the same ad that had paid them 50 grand the first time. And I mean, this is a small check that came in yesterday. This is $2,500. This was just for like an internet. We did like a song for like an internet thing. And I just got a check I just sent an invoice. I can show you if I can find my screenshot. It was $31,500 for another song. I'm not joking. Like, I mean, this is just stuff that's like right in front of me. But when you're sitting where I am and you actually like are, you know, going, I go to the bank, people don't know, most of the people don't know I have a show or a podcast or anything. And my bank account it's a business account, Cathy Music LLC. So sometimes I'll deposit like 3 checks, one for 75,000, one for 32,000, one for 4,000. And every once in a while the checker goes, what do you do? Right? Like, who the hell are you? Is this blood money? Are you selling drugs? What do you do? And I'm like, oh, we license music. She's like, what is that? I tell her and she's like, that's so cool. You know what I mean? Like, I can't believe how much money you make. You know, like I'm like, yeah. So when you have certainty, you would like shake yourself. You'd be like, what are you not doing? You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't, which is why I do think coming to these live events is so powerful, because not only do you get the certainty, because you hear stories like that, but then you meet the supervisors, you see them, and you're like, oh, now I have certainty that they're kind, that they really do care about indie artists. They just, you know, gave all this cool feedback. They're really easygoing and like approachable, and you get that certainty, and then you're like, I have to do it. Yeah. So that, I mean, the certainty is the biggest thing. So you start every morning with certainty. Then after that, you have to literally you have to change your state of mind, because your state of mind, I guarantee you don't just wake up in the morning like Pollyanna. Like you have to wake up ready to rip it open. So you have to figure that out. 80% of everything is psychology. And then you think about, okay, well, why do I want this goal? Well, I'd like to make that kind of money that I'm certain is being spent. I want you to think of it this way. There's a pipeline right now, right? Where like people are sending out these opportunities. We need a song like this. Here's the budget. You're not convincing them to need a song, and you're not convincing them of the budget. They're actually coming up with the budget that you wouldn't even come up with. I guarantee you, if you, any of the placements we just did, this one for 31,500, this one for 75 grand, this one for 25, whatever the placements were, I guarantee you, if you had to come up with the budget and I was like, Renee, okay, so there's a song, they like it. What do you want them to pay you? On your own, you'd probably go, $900? Like you wouldn't know what to come up with, right? What I'm saying is you're not twisting their arm. They made the price. They want to pay that. That's their offer. So I used to work at this real estate firm when I was first, had a day job, and I was working at this commercial real estate firm where they would buy these shopping malls. It was just a crazy thing that was my job, but whatever. And the guy who was my boss, he was like a billionaire, literally. It doesn't matter. He had a lot of money. And his father was a salesman, and his father used to sell water to offices, like, water coolers in offices, like in the 80s and 90s. And he said to me something I'll never forget. He goes, I remember being a kid and I learned sales from my dad, and I would go with my dad to like different offices, right? He'd sell them on like why they need water coolers. It was like the new thing in the 80s, and they need one in every room and blah, 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 blah. And he would get the account and they would refill the water. And my dad would do okay. So he goes, I remember one time going with him on a sales call, we walked in and the guy already had a water cooler, and it was the competitor company. And he goes, and I just sat down in my chair like, oh, I'm so embarrassed for my dad. And doesn't he notice? And why is he still talking? The guy already has it. Why are we in here? And he wound up like having a great conversation with the guy. And when they walked out, he goes, Dad, didn't you see? He already had a water cooler. He was already buying water from your competitor. And he goes, yeah. And that's how I knew he'd be an even easier customer. He goes, why? He goes, because he's already buying it. He's already in. He's already sold on it. Now I just have to get him to buy it from me.
Right.
And he goes, oh my God. He goes, the other people, I have to convince them that they need the water cooler. I have to convince them that they're going to, like, it's going to be solving their problems, and here's why. And then I have to convince them to buy it from me. This guy, he's already in. I just have to make a connection with him because he doesn't remember how much did the last sales rep connect with him, and how much has he followed up with him since his last birthday or whatever, right? So what I'm telling you is, you're not creating this. You don't have to force them. You don't have to sell them on. You don't have to sell them on the idea to work with an indie artist. They already are looking for you. I know that because they write to me. So if they're writing to me and they're not writing to record, they didn't say at Synckeepers, we only ask for record label artists.
Right.
Sorry. You have to convince me that you're good enough. No, they're purposely looking for you because they don't have the budget of $500,000 aside to have a Rihanna song. Okay. So you don't have to convince them on going to indie artists. You don't have to convince them on these crazy, incredible budgets that they came up with. Like my husband always says, don't they know? Aren't they figuring it out? Aren't they on to you that you would do this for a fourth of the price? And I'm like, shh, don't say anything. Like, they're good with it. And he's like, it's amazing that they don't get it because it's supply and demand, right? They've got way more music coming in. I said, right, but compared to what they spend at a label, the label is helping us because they set the precedent so high that they actually feel bad saying to themselves, why would I give an indie artist a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of what I would give a label artist? That's not fair if the song passes through the executive producer and all these, that's not fair, right? But it is fair to give them like such an embarrassing offer compared to that, but it's not fair for me to make it like nothing, right? Because they were gonna, right? So you don't have to do any convincing. There's pipelines all day, every single time. Every single time you're walking through your day and you hear any music, whether it's on the radio, there's an ad, whether it's on a TV show, whether it's in a trailer, whether you're at the frickin' gas station. Now there's little TVs and there's ads playing, and then in between little like news clips or whatever. Anytime you're hearing music, you're like, oh my God, someone looked for that song today, right? So there's countless people all over the States. And then there's people in every country, right? We just did another deal with someone in New Zealand. Like there's ad agencies everywhere. And then who's reaching out to them? Like I used to spend days thinking to myself, I'm just going to do all of Australia today. Right. And like, it was such a beautiful thing because they don't hear from people as often as the people in LA. Right. So just know that, be certain of the fact that people are making money, be certain that there's a pipeline, and then say to yourself, okay, even if I don't land it today, I'm going to have fun working on the track. And that fun is what I'm chasing anyway. So I'm going to do the thing that makes me have fun in anticipation of also this other thing, which I'm certain is already happening. And you will force yourself into action, but you have to take the action. So I want you to know, like, we have, let's see, like there's like 5 months left of this class. Just so you know, this is, at this point, from where Catch the Moon comes from, where I'm really coming from as a really good teacher, this is gravy time. This is me holding your hand, because there's no new thing that I can teach you that you don't already know, but we can go deeper with it. We can keep discussing it. We can talk about things like Brenna had a conversation with me just before about, like, let's tease out this idea about producers. Okay, good. That is a conversation we probably couldn't have had on day one, right? We now can have that a little bit in a different way, because she knows what I mean when I say be resourceful. Let them know what you have to offer as far as pitching up. She knows that. She can feel that. Also, she knows what she wants to write. She knows that in and of itself will be a value add, because a lot of people don't even do the time to research or write anything that would go anywhere. They just want to write a song about this guy they loved in the second grade. So she gets that on a deeper level. So we can go deeper and we can keep discussing this, but you guys have to do the work. You have to. And the beautiful thing is that people are, over the last, it was kind of like uncanny, because we're in the middle of this like 5-day challenge we did. You can ask John, because he's here, or he was here. I think he's still here. Anyway, over that 5-day challenge, and then during like the week after, from our students, he was like, oh my God, we had like five licenses come through for our students, which we weren't planning that it would be that week, but it was really cool. We're like, so-and-so just got this. It was really true. So while you're here over the next 5 months, like, use the opportunity, because John is taking things to the next level. I feel like he's added a lot, and he really knows the catalog well, and we're pitching stuff constantly. So take the initiative, use this time, and also don't worry just about us. Pitch it to all these other people, follow up. Every time a music supervisor comes in to talk to this group, you should follow up to that person. Like Julian Drucker, how many of you were in Julian's session this past week? Yeah, and he was at St. Keepers too. Sometimes they double up, a lot of times they don't. But if you met them at the live event, Renee, or if you saw them come on live, send an email and be like, I met you in Cathy's class, or I met, you know what I mean? Like, then you're different than all the other people who don't have any connection with this person, and talk about something that he said that you really liked. I love when you shared this, and I just wanted to share that with you. I have nothing to ask you for. Just plant the seed, right? Start the relationship. He worked with Amanda Krieg Thomas. She's literally the biggest music supervisor right now. Amanda Krieg Thomas. Google it. Look at what she's working on.
Google that.
Okay? Like, crazy town. And there's 3 people who work in that office. So Julian does most of the placing, because Amanda's like making bigger deals and running the show, and she just had a baby. Just take a little look-see in what they're working on. Yay, music team. Just take a look. She's like she's it right now. So follow up and just start to make a relationship with this guy, because he's so sweet. He's so like sweet, really.
Oh no, yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Totally. No, I'm excited. Thank you. I'm excited about the next 5 months, because for me, it's kind of like that 6-month class you're offering. I'm kind of glad I wasn't in that one because of what happened, but I'm treating it like I've started over. And
yeah.
Turn in all the music I didn't turn in for the last 6 months.
Awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to, we're basically, what we're doing in that program is everything we did here, with just the volume is on really loud. We're like, this is what we're doing. Boom, 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 boom. And really, like, eventually it's just going to be 3 months. It's going to be 3 months of like all this stuff. And then after that, people could, join us for, if they just want opportunities, they could join the legacy program. They can meet supervisors. That way they can come to live events, but they don't need to hear the same stuff. They need to go do the work is what they need to do. Right. And make relationships and follow up and actually do the stuff. And for people who do that, we've seen huge results. One other thing I just wanted to say that we did, we've been stressing in this new group, which we talked about here. We've talked about it many times. How many of you have people in this group who you keep accountable? Like, do you guys connect? Do you meet up with each other? Robin does. I'm not surprised because Robin's the best and has such a good attitude and so many good friends around him.
It's actually Chris Clark, who you know pretty well too.
I know Chris is the best too. This last event was so, like, it was like the best event we've ever done. And I loved hanging out with you guys after the end of that last day. And did you notice also how at the end of the panels, like this music supervisor stayed to talk to everybody, which was really nice. It was really refreshing. I'm not surprised, Chris, that you started that. How many of you are in it, have an accountability partner or group? I think it's so, Summer, you have one. Do you guys meet up every week? Hang on, I can't hear you. 1 second. 1 second. Ah!
Got it.
How often do you guys meet up? Oh no, just when she talked, she froze. Darn it. Oh, you unfroze.
Am I good?
Yeah. Oh no, you're not good. There's something with the connection. Renee, go ahead. You have to. Oh, I can't hear you. Oh, Summer, I can't hear you. Just post it in the chat. What I was going to say to you is it would be really cool if you guys found a team, and maybe we should even have you do that for the last 6 months, because I think it is everything. It's like oxygen, you know, in between the time where you hear from John or from a supervisor or from me. Like, you need each other to go over this stuff with and be like, here's how many people I've reached out to, share information with each other. Here's a supervisor I contacted. Here's what she said. Oh, by the way, she said she needed this. Do you have anything like that? You guys should be doing that every single week. And what I told the new group to do, just because I learn new tools all the time, I told them to use Voxer, which is a really cool app, which allows for you to, it's free. And you guys, it's like a walkie-talkie, and you can leave like a long message. Someone can listen while you're leaving the message. You can have a whole group on Voxer, and it's free, and it's so cool and so easy to use. And people can live all over the world and use Voxer. You don't have to live in the same city. You don't have to live in the same country. It's called Voxer with a V, like V as in voice, Voxer. I would create your group, and I'm gonna tell John to you know what we did in the last group? We actually made groups for people, but now you know everybody, so you might not want us to make a group for you. But what we could do is like take the list of everybody who's in the program and like randomize it and like put people in groups, or you can make your own groups. But I think that it is essential, because throughout the week you have those people to be like, I just hit the wall, I'm feeling frustrated, or this just happened and I felt so excited, and it gives other people that like boost. And I think you need that, right? Because you need to take that action. So I meet up with somebody not in the class every 1 or 2 weeks. Yeah, the in-person connection is best. That's awesome. I agree. But I would love for you guys to step it up on that, especially through the end. Because what we've noticed, and John, from his own experience when he was in my program, he met so many other people in the program. And I noticed that, like, for people who sort of find their group, the rising tide sort of like raises all the boats, and everybody sort of vibes on that, and it helps everybody. And so I think that would be really cool. Yeah, I think we need that. So let me see. Maybe if we do it coming from us, people will take it more seriously rather than being like, do you want to be my partner? So we'll do like some kind of an announcement about that. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of cool music supervisors that we have booked over the next few months. And we don't have a date yet for Sync Keepers, because we were playing email tag with the theater, but they said that the dates are pretty wide open. So what we're gonna do, by the way, is we really like doing it at the last theater because it was intimate, but we're not gonna be able to do every event there because so many people wanted to come last time and felt bad that we didn't have a space. So we're gonna alternate it. We're gonna have some events at the Harmony Gold where more people can fit, and then we'll do another event, and that'll be more of like, it's a little more advanced, you know, because it's more intimate. It'll still be the same price. We're not changing that, but we're going to sort of vary it. So the next one we do, I think, is going to be at the Harmony Gold because it's 350 seats. And we'll let you know when we have the dates for that. And yeah, what else? I would love to to see you guys have this kind of group to go to. And I would love to see sort of like where you're at, you know, based on what we just talked about at the end of the week. So I want to check in with you. Today's Sunday. I know it's a holiday weekend, but I'm going to check in with you in the thread, in the Facebook thread, and I'll write something to see like what you've done, you know, since we talked. And I'd like for you to sort of like, as like a roll call, to like write back and like comment and let me know. But it really does inspire your fellow classmates when you take action, and I would love to see you guys letting us know what you're doing. So yeah, so think about it, you know, think about everything that we talked about today, doing those things that make you feel free and alive, and following the synchronicity of those events. And then all of that, those things about getting resourceful and reaching out to people to help you make more music, and coming together with people in the class will also help with that. But yeah, it's Labor Day weekend and we have to go to a barbecue. But even if we didn't, it's already been an hour and 40 minutes. I don't want to take more of your weekend. But thank you guys for, once again, this was, every time we meet up, I'm always like, is it going to be interesting? We always have like such great conversations, and I truly enjoy it. So I really appreciate you guys and your time. And I hope that this felt like a nice boost. And I look forward to hearing from you in a week and seeing where you're at. Okay, awesome. All right, guys, have an amazing weekend. To be continued. Remember what's possible. Okay, talk to you soon.